Hi, this is Tammy with the T, and I'm here to share with you the 5 things I loved about going through menopause. I find there are so many negative and fearful things said and written about menopause, whether on social media and the media in general, movies, podcasts, that I wanted to talk about what I personally loved about going through menopause and why I love this season of life I am in now. I regularly get questions about perimenopause and menopause all the time from younger women. And even women who are postmenopause will find me and ask me questions about what they find happening in their bodies. So it does seem like something women want to talk about. The women I talk to seem to be afraid of what to expect, and I know I was. And to me, it feels like a similar fear most of us had around pregnancy and birth or anything to do with the unknowns during our reproductive years. These are things we don't get to see and talk about during everyday life. While we were growing up, most of us heard nothing about our reproductive lives, and it wasn't normalized in the way it is in more traditional cultures. To me, that is a great loss for women of any age. Women pretty much always seem really surprised when I talk about how happy I was to go through menopause and how interesting and even exciting it was for me. Like many women today, I had no idea when I might go through the change, since all the women on my maternal side had hysterectomies and didn't have any insight into when they would have gone through menopause naturally. At around age 44, I thought maybe I was perimenopausal. I started going to an acupuncturist and massage therapist weekly, mainly since at that time my mother was dying of cancer, I was managing my family's organic market, and I had a full-time busy midwifery practice. I was beyond stressed out, and when I look back on it, I see how I used my busyness as a coping mechanism. Not a good coping mechanism, mind you, but it was all my creation, and no one made me do it but me. But what I found out was that with acupuncture and Chinese herbs the acupuncturist gave me, my period pretty quickly returned to a normal flow, and my cycle returned to my normal schedule of every 26 days. And it turned out I wasn't perimenopausal at all. I talk to a lot of women who think they might be perimenopausal in their early 40s, and often they are super stressed out too. And we can talk about that more in another video, stress and menopause. I actually didn't end up going through menopause until my early 50s. It was so slow in happening that I finally stopped paying attention. And then one year, I just didn't bleed anymore. I can't tell you what year, but sometime in my early 50s, it did happen without much fanfare. You may wonder if I did have any symptoms of menopause. And I did, but nothing big to me anyway, and I am certainly happy to talk about that more in another video as well. I believe in starting at the least invasive approach to any health issue in my personal life, using simple things from the earth. And if that isn't working, I will follow up with more focused home treatments. And if ultimately none of that is working, I will see other providers who can assist me in getting well. I believe our bodies want to return to equilibrium. And if we give our body love and what it needs to support itself, then our body will heal. I believe it is really that simple most of the time. But when I did have any weird bleeding or too much bleeding during this time of life, I drank pregnancy and postpartum support tea that I now sell in my Holistic Woman tea line. I also drank women's support tea throughout the months just to support my hormones, my liver, my body in general while going through this change. And now I've created a heavy flow tea for Holistic Woman that I would recommend if a woman is having more bleeding than she feels comfortable with during her peri and menopausal cycles or any menstrual cycle. So getting back to the 5 things, though, that I personally loved about menopause is number 1, you get to stop bleeding every cycle. Our hormones don't completely stop the monthly cycling, but we do stop bleeding. If I am paying attention to the ebb and flow of my day-to-day emotions, I still can tell when I would be near ovulation and when I'd have started my period if I were still bleeding. Number 2, you no longer have to pay for menstrual products and the sales tax you were charged for them. You don't have to decide on the best of the worst birth control and then pay for that too. You can enjoy having less to no hormonally caused migraines, no PMS, and no big cyclical hormonal swings. Number 3, you can't get pregnant. You can stop being the one who has to think about birth control and what method is most effective and safe for you. Number 4, there is a newfound sexual freedom Though this is a part of number 3, you can't get pregnant, it seemed like it deserved its own special spot. However, rates of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis in people ages 55 and up more than doubled in the US over the 10-year period from 2012 to 2022. So with that sexual freedom, please do use safe sex practices. You can't get pregnant, but you can get sexually transmitted infections, and that sucks. And lastly, number 5, you are no longer thinking about or wanting to reproduce. Thank you, hormones. So there is more time to think about what you do want to do in this season of your life. Maybe avoiding those men sharing chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. Anyway, you could get to do you. For some of us, it may be the very first time in our lives that we could truly say that. So tell me, if the topic of menopause hits home for you, and if you want to hear more about it, subscribe, put your comments in the comment section, click on like if you liked this, and if you're interested in tea for your menopausal experience or any life experience, the link to my website is below too, and thank you for watching.